if we see the data, it's changed a lot since Haryana came into being in 1967. Till 67, it was part of Punjab. And in 67, whereas we were dependent on agriculture, the GDP contribution was 61% from agriculture. Now it's just 17%. And it's predominantly a service sector economy and manufacturing contributing almost 35% to it. A brief about the demographics and the urbanization scenario. We are more or less in tune with what the entire country is experiencing, though a bit fast-paced. Till 2001, Haryana was also 29% urbanized, but by 2011, there has been a fast-paced urbanization, and in 2021, we hope that it increases further. There are some startling statistics. During 2001 to 11, for every one person getting added into rural area, 2 persons got added to urban areas. So that shows the dynamics of the situation. But most of us would think that what's so different about it? What's so different about the urbanization being experienced in Haryana? There are basically two differentiating factors. One is predominant contribution by the private sector. And when I say private sector, we have private sector based urbanization in many of the states. But what happens is some state agency allocates land to the private sector, and then the development is undertaken by the private sector. What happens in Haryana is the private sector is required to self-acquire the land itself. So they have to conform to the development plan, acquire the land themselves, and then come to the government. Unless they have a clear title, they can't even approach the government. Even the license application won't be valid. So this 42,000 acres, this might be the highest in the entire country, though being a very small state. And what has happened in the last 15 years, after coming of the new Land Acquisition Act, that the public agencies have felt quite crippled. They have not been able to acquire much of land, and so there has been almost 82% contribution from the private sector in the planned urbanization. So that's a major differentiating factor. And then there has been a phenomenal contribution from the small and medium towns, as we go and see further. So if we just look at this bit of statistics, we didn't have even 5 lakh population towns in Haryana till 1981, what to say of metropolitan towns. So the first metropolitan town emerged only in 2001, that was Faridabad. And right now we have just 5 lakh plus towns, one of them metropolitan. And so it has been a predominantly small and medium towns, even Gurgaon, which is now almost, which is a metropolitan town now. Till 2 decades back, it was hardly having 2.5 lakh population. So the growth has been phenomenal, and the cumulative population of small and medium towns, if we see, still it's a huge number. And it's mostly the urbanization. Though Gurgaon being a predominant, it looks as if everything is happening in Gurgaon, but most of the urbanization actually is being contributed by these small and medium towns. So just having a look at the framework, the legislative framework, because it's again a bit different from what most of the states have. So we have a Controlled Areas Act, wherein we declare controlled areas, and it's almost 27% of the state that is controlled areas. And for those controlled areas, we need to have a development plan. So Controlled Area Act basically is a restrictive. It says you can't do this, you can't do that, without having a proper approval. So under this act, we prepare development plans, and I'm very happy to say that almost 82% of the statutory towns or census towns, they have a development plan. So there is quite a lot of emphasis. Our CTP, Mr. Devinder Nimbukar is here, and we have a special cell which is CCP-NCR, and it's dedicated for preparation of these development plans, and there's a huge focus on that. So the next is the sorry. The next is the Urban Areas Act. So this is again a very different act, not found in most of the states. This encourages the private sector to assemble land in the urban areas for which the development plan has been prepared, and then apply for a license to the government, and the government would grant a license for plan development. So most of the private colonies which have come up, they are mostly granted a permission under this act. And then there are usual apartment ownership acts, and then there is a periphery control act for around Chandigarh, and then a few metropolitan authority acts of Gurgaon, Faridabad, and Panchkula. So this is the picture which emerges. The map that we see on the right, this shows basically the controlled areas. So this is 27% of the state on which the department has a jurisdiction. On the remaining part, you don't need basically any permission to undertake any constructions or whatever. And the right side of the picture, that shows the areas for which we have development plans. So that's again quite a substantial. There are few controlled areas left for which we don't have a development plan, but substantially most of the state is covered. Few challenges which have emerged in the recent past and how we have responded. And so when you have such a proliferation of private sector, then you actually need policies which are oriented to cater to the entire ecosystem. And so we have specific policies for plotted development, group housing, and recently affordable plotted, affordable group housing, commercial integrated plotted, mixed land use, industrial plotted, integrated industrial, cyber city, cyber plotted, and a normal group housing to affordable plotted and affordable group housing. And coming down to then, how has all this been beneficial, or how have the small and medium towns performed vis-a-vis the large towns? So if we collate the data for a block of 5 years, so the blue line that you see, that's the total licensed area. So either in large or in smaller towns. The green one is for the small and medium towns, and the red one is for the two towns, the two large towns that we have, Gurgaon and Faridabad. So if we see the incremental